Sweet. All right. Well, I'm going to start in three, two, one. All right. So we're back. This is the Melton ForgeWorks podcast. And this year in 2025, I'm just doing guests, just guests all the time. I want to focus on other people and see what other people are doing. And one of my favorite things is to talk to other people in their shops and see what they're up to. And today we're talking to the one and only GnomeHammer Forge. Everybody knows him. He's cranking out, he's pumping hammers out like crazy lately, and I wanted to talk to him and just get get some brain picking going on with
Yeah.
what's going on in your world and all the changes you're going through and all that. But
Yeah.
so welcome, Ryan Bruick from GnomeHammer Forge. So right off the bat, I just wanted to ask you. I think the first time I met you in person was at Quad State
Yep. It was
three
Quad State
three
last
years
year.
ago or
No,
last
no, it
year.
was not this previous one, but the one before. So
Yeah,
it would have been
okay.
2023.
Yep. And that was, I think that was either in the middle or before you started doing all the
It
batch
was right. It
hammers.
was right before because
Okay.
I went to Maker Camp in October that year, and that's when I met Brian in person, Brian House,
Gotcha.
and yeah, and that's how it all started. That's it all
Sweet.
went from
So
there
I
because
want
he
to
saw my
roll.
hammers in person, and I told him I was like, I have a good supplier and all that, so
Yeah,
that's how we want to like. It just kind of clicked, and
that's awesome. Well, you know,
He
that's
called me
why
when the
those
plane
events are
landed.
so great.
Yeah, oh yeah, I love, especially Maker Camp. It's a huge. That thing's so big, and there's so many different medias there and disciplines. It's crazy. I love it.
Yeah, that's on my bucket list. I've not made it up there yet. That's quite a haul from Mississippi. Um,
Yeah, we drive there every
but
year. So
I want to get there for sure. I'm really going to try to get there this next year. Um,
yeah,
but I want to go back before that. So
yeah, yeah.
how did how did you first start getting into forging or blacksmithing?
Um, well, it was COVID, and it was right at the start of COVID. There was no shutdowns yet. It was just like, inklings were about. And we went to, I was just working for my family's business, electrical contracting. And I still work there 1 day a week. I do all the back end work. Um, so just taxes, payroll, stuff like that.
All
And
the fun stuff.
yeah, all the stuff that no one wants to do. Yeah. So HR dealing with, the health insurance and all the stuff no one wants to do. Um and I was just kind of stuck. I was either doing that and then I would come home and sit and play video games or do nothing pretty much. Just kind of wasting my life away. And
Hmm.
I wasn't happy, and I found it was on YouTube because I wanted to forge back when Forge and Fire first came out. I was like 14, 15 years old. And I was like, oh, I want to try that. My parents were like, do you really? Because I was pretty known for not sticking to anything. Like I'd try things for a couple weeks and not like
I,
it.
I don't think that's just a personal trait. I think that's a
Yeah,
teenage trait for
yeah,
sure.
yeah. Well, it's a pattern for me my entire life. Like until like drumming was the first thing that I became absolutely obsessed with, and I did that. So that's what they got me. Instead of a forging setup, they got me a drum kit, which and I don't know how that made sense to them, but because it was in the basement and I was so loud.
I
So
was about to say, I don't know that that's less noise than forging.
yeah, well, and with forging, I'm out in the garage or something where you wouldn't hear me. They put me right in the basement. It's like you heard me all day. So
Yeah. They also probably thought, well, he can't burn the house down if we give him some
yeah, yeah,
noise.
that was probably it. He's not gonna really hurt himself doing this.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna burn myself severely. Uh, yeah, so I did that for a long time, and then yeah, I was 28, 29, and just kind of doing nothing. Like I was out of the band life, and because I toured with a band and stuff for my younger years, and
Oh,
did a
fun.
lot of did a lot of dumb partying for the beginning of my adulthood, and then I was living I was living in a house with like 7 people, and I was like, I need to get out of here and get my shit together. And
Yeah.
so I left, and I moved back to my parents' house for a short time until I found a place. And then Then I had my son, and that kind of got me on the straight and narrow. But then I fell
That'll
into a
do it
rut.
fast.
28, 29, I fell into this rut where I was just working at the office, and I was sitting there for 8 hours a day, but it didn't take 8 hours of work. So I was
Yeah.
just sitting there mindlessly watching YouTube a lot and doing nothing. And that's when I got on to Brent Bailey's stuff. And that's what I was
Yeah.
like, man, this stuff's freaking cool.
So
And
then,
it
so then
sparked
you were
that
like,
whole
I have
interest
to
again.
get, then you were like, I
Yep.
have to get a Little Giant 250 now.
Yeah. You bet, you bet. I was like, how do I get to that? And then
Yeah.
I was like, and then a lot of people, so I started joining like the blacksmith groups and stuff. And for Christmas, I had gotten just a cheap Sigmund forge from Amazon, and because I got some Amazon gift cards, so I got that. And I got a little setup, and I literally shoveled out an 8x4 section in the yard out of because we live in Michigan, so there's tons of snow, and shoveled out an 8x4 area, set up a threw down a plywood board and set up a table and stuff, and turned on the
Hmm.
forge and just kind of tinkered from there. Melted a lot of steel because I didn't know how the hell to run a forge. Like I am 100% self-taught. I've never taken a class, nothing. So
Yeah.
it was it was a big learning curve to learn how to run the forge and all that stuff. And
Oh, it
uh,
is.
but yeah, and then I made a lot of people were like, you shouldn't go for hammers. That's going to be too hard to do for your first, for like your, for just starting out and all that, and this and that. And so I was like, okay, well, maybe I'll try making knives. And I made three, absolutely hated every second of it. And was like, all right, I need to make a soft hammer so I can start hitting tooling and not catching a chip in the leg or something. And because
Yeah.
that's a big thing for me, is I believe if you're going to hit any kind of top tooling, you should have a soft hammer. And so I punched that first eye. I made a hammer eye punch out of a ball peen hammer because I saw some YouTube video
Oh,
on it.
yeah. Yeah.
And then I punched my first eye, which that hammer is around here somewhere. I still use it. It's my drifting hammer.
Hmm.
And it was just a chunk, a 2x2 by like 4-inch chunk of mild steel. So it's
Hmm.
quite the task for my first hammer punch, for my
Oh,
first
yeah.
eye punch.
By hand.
Uh,
Oh my
and it
gosh.
took me, I think it took me 2 hours because I kept getting it stuck. I didn't know what I was doing, all that. And it was a miserable time. The punch kept curving, so I kept having to straighten it back out, and it just took forever. But man, when I punched that, when I saw that hole through that eye and put it against I sat it on the anvil, and you could see the glow of the forge through the eye of it. I was like, all right, now I need to figure out how to do it faster.
Yeah.
So then I just started accumulating equipment to start. The first thing was the coal iron 12 ton. That was my first
Hmm.
big purchase, which I pretty much use my savings for that because I
Yeah.
just wasn't doing anything. So I bought that, and then it was all rolling from there. Then I really got obsessed with making hammers.
Man, there's something about making hammers. I didn't I did bladesmithing and what I would call tinker forging for a good 10 years before I ever did really much blacksmithing. And I took a hammer making class with a guy named Lyle Wynn, who's a student of Brian Brazil. You know, he's in the
Okay. Yep.
Brazil, and I took the tools to make tools class with Lyle. And I don't know what it is, but there's something about making a hammer. And I've never seen anybody that's really interested in blacksmithing. I've never seen that person learn to make a hammer that didn't at least have a phase where they were just like, that's all I want to do is make hammers. You know, it's like you to get it once you punch that hole and stick a piece of wood on it and you've got that hammer.
Yeah,
It's
man.
like your whole world kind of opens up for all these different hammer types and
Well, I mean,
tools, you know, and
it was man's first tool. So it's like,
yeah, there's
I think
something
there is a primal
elemental about it.
obsession with, yeah, it's something that's deep embedded in us, I
Yeah.
think.
And the other thing
And
is,
that,
you know,
and
you're making tools mostly, I think, for other blacksmiths and bladesmiths.
yeah,
But the hammer is a tool that everybody understands. Like,
yeah, I'm
like
about
I
to
run into
prototype some.
people. I might run into people and they might know that I've made hammers, and they're like,
Hmm.
"Oh, can you make me a hammer for my dad or somebody?" And I mean, you can make a hammer for somebody that's not in blacksmithing or
Hmm.
bladesmithing, and it's completely useful to them and as valuable to them. I made a couple of
Yep.
hammers this Christmas for my sister. She gave them as gifts to some people, and they were framing hammers basically for carpentry.
Yep.
And I don't know, there's just something universal about that item. But once you learn to make it, it's like a lot of people just get not stuck, but they just get really passionate about
Oh
it,
yeah. Oh
And
yeah.
some people stick with it long term. Some people do it and then kind of move off from it. And, there's no really a right or wrong there. It's just whatever's working for you. But
Man, it's hard to make a living at it. So
it
you got to make a
it,
lot
it
of hammers.
is. It absolutely is, And you mentioned Brent Bailey. He's one of my heroes for
Oh,
sure.
dude, he's my
And I've
idol.
I've watched
As far as
I
the
think I watched
blacksmithing.
every one of his videos
Yep.
probably a dozen times,
Yep.
just kind of studying what he was doing. And w- once you get to the point where you're proficient at making hammers and get good at it, you know, it's like for me, the big thing was once I figured out hole punching and fullering,
Yep.
I was like, man, there's like a million varieties of things I
Once you
can
figure
make
out how to
with
do the
just,
eye right, yeah. Once you figure
yeah,
out the eye, it's pretty easy
yeah,
after that.
yep. So that's cool. So
Yeah.
you basically jumped straight into hammer making.
Oh yeah. I made 3 knives, and that was it. Everything else has
Huh.
been hammers since then. Like I make,
Okay.
I do little stuff here and there, like little stuff, but it's mostly just texturing or like making a bracket for the shop or something. But like I
Yeah.
don't make. I went full bore into hammers because I was like, the way I saw it is I didn't see a lot of hammer makers, and I love making hammers, so I was like, I'm just gonna stick with that. I'm gonna stick with one thing and learn it and just
Yeah.
obsess over it. And
I'm a big
I mean,
believer in
I
in
love it,
in
man.
figuring one thing out before you move to
I know
something
your
else.
story. Your
We
story
we
a few
talked
days
about that.
ago. Yeah, your
You know,
story a few
that's
days ago. I was like, that's
that's
it,
huge.
right there.
Yeah, well, it's easy to get scatterbrained or kind of
Hmm.
ADHD in this thing, because
Yes.
there are so many cool tools to play with. There's so many awesome techniques to learn. You'll never
Yep.
learn it all. You'll never master it all. And so for me, I don't, I mean, like you said, this is the one thing you kind of got to and stuck with after drums,
Hmm.
I did the same thing when I was younger. I did remote control airplanes and
Yeah.
paintball and video gaming of all kinds. I mean, I went
Yep.
through about every hobby you could come to, but this is the one that kind of stuck like glue to me.
Yep.
And I think it's because I know I can never get bored with it. It's like
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
I might get bored with making hammers or tongs or whatever, but as soon as I get bored with that particular thing, there's so many other things that I have in the back of my head that I want to try that
Yep.
I'll never get to the end of it.
I think that's a big thing for me is just the it's not even necessarily hammers that I'm obsessed with. It's the production aspect. Like I've always been striving to make things to make more and make faster. Like
Hmm.
that's always my goal is how can I make the process faster and while still being efficient. Obviously, I don't want to lose any quality or anything, but like how can I? And that's why I hired a guy because I was like, man, I just can't do. I'm at a max here. I've reached my limit. I need to bring him in, and then that just created a whole new bottleneck of things. So
Yeah, well,
it's like
that's
every
a
time
really
there's a
big
bottleneck,
that's a
I
big
create a new one.
leap. That's a really
Yeah,
big leap, and a
and
lot of
it's
people
scary
don't
because I
take
have
that
to pay
step
that
for
dude.
time. Yeah, yeah. And I mean, there's a whole new level of paperwork that you have to deal with, and there's a
Yeah.
whole level of responsibility because in some way you're giving someone else employment, and
Hmm.
so anyway, that's a good segue to this kind of the second point that I wanted to talk to you about
Yeah.
was since you jumped headfirst into hammer making and things have been growing really, really fast for you, are you looking at this are you kind of gamifying this uh production and growth like almost like a level up kind of a thing, like instead of
Yes.
leveling up some character in a video game world, now
Yeah.
you're leveling
Absolutely.
yourself up, and so instead of being stuck and focused on the product you're making, it sounds like you're just as excited about the getting to level 20 you know
Yeah. It's more. Yeah. It's more progressing my skills in the production and learning the bigger and fat and just the faster ways of doing the bigger equipment. Like I've got a power hammer from Chris Cash coming, a big 250 Bulgarian, so
mm,
that'll speed things up. That'll be really nice. And then making some other moves. I'm trying to get there, but yeah, that's definitely the mindset I've always had is how can I level? How can I get to the next step? How can I make this that faster? Like how can I improve? So it's
yeah.
always about that. It's always about making that next leap because
So
I can't, if I believe if I stay in one spot, because that's usually when I know I need to push for a new risk, is I'm getting too comfortable. If I'm
yeah,
comfortable, that means I'm falling behind. So I
yeah,
like to be uncomfortable all of the time. So
yeah,
it's exhausting and stressful and all of that, but if I'm
sure.
not uncomfortable, then I know I'm going to lose my edge. Like I'm going to start falling behind and getting lazy. And it's a momentum
Well,
thing.
I've
If
I've
I
seen
stay
you.
comfortable, I lose momentum.
Yeah, yeah, I've seen you. You're posting some of your workout stuff lately. You've started hitting the
Yeah.
gym and that kind of stuff, and it's this is just the way life is. Period. I don't know. I don't care if it's your physical fitness or your professional life, your spiritual
Yep.
life, or whatever. You're never standing still.
No.
If you're not clawing forward, then you're sliding backwards, whether it's in your
Yep.
physical fitness or your personal life, your marriage,
Yep.
your profession, whatever it is. If you are not literally trying to claw your way forward, you can rest assured you're not staying where you're at. You're
No.
sliding
Nope.
downward. And what's the danger is you don't realize it that you're sliding. You think you're staying in this area and you think you're
Exactly.
comfortable, but literally you're something is slipping somewhere. And so,
Yep.
that mindset that you've got is well, that's what you have to have if you want to be like the CEO of a company someday. Because like
Yeah.
right now you're
Or yeah.
forging these hammers, but who knows, 10 years from now,
Yeah. It could be a
you
whole
may
different
not
game.
be. Yeah, you
Yeah.
may not be forging anymore. You may be the one going
Don't you
to
say that, Derek.
business
I
meetings
absolutely will.
or
I will die in this shop.
well, you know what I'm saying. I mean, it's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah. It's gonna be. Yeah. I'll be more big picture rather than the daily grind.
yeah, yeah.
Eventually.
So,
Yeah, because
so
I do want to
because
start
you,
like a school and all kinds of stuff. So like
yeah.
there's a big leaps to be made, and that comes with getting people to take my place in what I do now. So
So because
which
you
I'm
have
slowly training my
grown,
guy on how to forge a hammer too. So
oh yeah,
when he has
yeah.
free time, I keep him pretty busy. So
That's not that doesn't happen really fast.
no, no,
Every year between October and December, it's just that's my super busy time in the
yep,
forge. It
yeah,
is ridiculously
absolutely,
busy. Every minute that I have has to go out there to fill orders, and I'm by myself. And every year, family will say, "Hey, have you thought about getting a college kid or somebody to
yeah,
come out and help you?" And I'm like, yeah, there are some tasks that I could assign to them, but the forging, I can't teach somebody how to forge
yeah,
very quickly. Now, I could do it over time, but
yep.
I just can't do it very quickly. And um, so the biggest step you've taken for growth, you think that's hiring a person? Is that like the biggest risk you've
Um,
taken so far?
Honestly, I think so because he's opened. Well, for one, I went from, doing, I think it took me a month or so to get like 60 hammers ready for Maker Camp. We do 50 hammers a week now. So
Hmm.
it's a huge increase in, because all I do is forge now. I spend 8 hours a day forging. So, and he takes care of every step after that because I've taught him like I took about a week. I got very lucky and he's a very quick learner and a very tactile person. So he took to it extremely quickly.
Hmm.
I got really lucky. And he's a very easy guy to get along with. Like we laugh and have fun in the shop, which is a nice turn of pace because usually I'm stuck in my head all the time because there's no one
Yeah.
around. So it's a lot of thinking.
Hmm. That's awesome. Yeah, I don't know how it would be having somebody else in my shop with me. I mean, right now my shop is fairly small. It would be
So you're
a
pretty tight
struggle.
in yours.
It would be a struggle having somebody out there, but I mean, if I was going to do that, I could make it work. But I'm just thinking about just the pacing
Well, even if
and
you did seasonal, like, and yeah, I just have
offloading
him.
stuff to another person.
Yeah, and he does mostly finish work because, like you said, the forging you can't really teach someone very quickly. So when he's in here, like I'm teaching him hammer control with the texturing, coffee scoops, and stuff like that, and a little bit getting a little bit of basics just so he's. And he told me today, he came in today, he was like, "Dude, the muscle in my hand hurt so bad yesterday." I was like, "Yeah, that's because you're
Oh,
swinging a hammer
mm,
all day. Not
doing
used to
that ball pen
that."
texturing, man.
Yep.
Yeah, that's no fun on
Well,
those coffee scoops.
I told him, I was like, yeah, man, when I'm 50, man, I'm going to have giant meat hands because all that drifting hammers all day is that builds that muscle right there in between your thumb and your forefinger.
I don't know, man. I mean, you'll probably get so much power forging equipment
Yeah.
that
Oh, yeah.
it'll probably balance out.
Yeah, I'm trying to get out of hand drifting because
Yeah.
it's too time consuming for one. That's the problem.
Well, too, I mean,
I
the
do it
other,
with the
if
press,
you're going to
but the
do
press is
this,
so dang aggressive. If I'm slightly off from my bolster, it'll ruin my punch or my bolster. Like 60 tons will push right through it. It doesn't care.
oh yeah, I had never used a 60 ton until I went. I think it was when I did the demo at Coal Iron,
Yep.
and we had the open forge day before, and me and another guy were wanting to forge a hammer. And so I
Hmm.
got a couple of billets, got it hot, and went to that 60 ton and just absolutely mangled a billet on the
Yep.
first try. I mean, because I was used to a 25 ton,
Yeah.
and I was kind
Having
of
some
used to the
resistance.
speed and
Yeah,
all that.
those things are like
And man, it just
butter.
was like, it just went right through it. And I ruined a billet literally on like the second, little crunch. And
Press.
I was
Yeah.
like, wow, this is a lot.
Yep.
It's a
And it's
lot,
quick.
lot of
It's
power.
not slow. So
Yeah, no, not at all. It doesn't slow down for anything. I think at 60 ton you could probably forge a hammer cold, you know.
oh, I spread cheeks at gray heat basically.
Yeah,
Sometimes. Sometimes. If my OCD is taking over and I'm getting a little obsessed over a line or something.
yeah. That's just when I first got my first hydraulic press. That was one thing I didn't understand. I was like, okay, even though it's just 25 tons, it would still move steel way beyond when I should. Like,
Yeah.
it'll move steel when it's cold. But when you do that, I ruined so many
Yeah.
dies and
Yeah,
so
it's
many
rough on the
punches just
dive.
because,
I don't
yeah, it
know.
would just ruin it.
Like I don't know. Yeah, especially the punches. The punches don't like it.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is with the dies that I have. Like Caleb Wahlberg made my dies, at least my
Okay.
custom ones.
Yeah.
And man, I can't break those things.
Hmm.
I don't know what he uses, but they don't break. Like I can't. I have had the same dies the entire time. I've I've cracked H13 dies and all kind. Like I've messed up some dies, but the ones that he's made me, I haven't been able to mess them up yet. So
Huh. The
so
toughest
that's so
dies
tough
I've ever
about him.
used are, I think the toughest ones I've ever used are S7.
Yeah.
I've got a set of combo dies that are S7, and I mean, I have abused those things, and they look just like the day I got them.
Yeah.
you know,
Yep. Yeah, I
super.
was pushing ashtrays all day today, and I was like, oh man, hope I don't mess up any dies with this because that's a lot of upsetting and it's a lot of pressure built up in
Oh
there.
yeah, sure. Well, speaking of equipment, one of the things I wanted to get to today was, you just threw your press up for sale.
Yeah. Yep.
And I think everybody collectively in the community was like, "What?"
I got so many messages like, didn't you just bolted it down? I was like, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, when
Yes.
you got to make moves, you got to make moves. So
So I mean, yeah, tell me how you came to this decision, because that's a big
well,
decision to move away from your
yeah,
bread. That's your bread and butter machine, right?
yeah. I know. It's. I won't lie. It's scary. It's scary taking that kind of step because because like you said, that's the bread and butter right there. That's the moneymaker. So, but it's to a point where, like I said, we're doing 50 a week, but my my new guy, he's getting Dave. Dave is getting so quick that he's pumping out like 30 hammers a day. So I'm like, I can't keep up now because I had a bunch for him when he first started. There was so much piled up that it was like kind of overwhelming. So I was like, just take your time, learn what you're
Yeah.
doing. Speed will come with time. Just take it
Yeah.
slow and just learn. And man, he caught on. Like I said, he caught on so quick. But I have everything to a very specific process. So as long as you follow what I tell, like follow the guidelines, you'll be fine. And
Yeah.
he took to it. And and yeah, so he's up to I think it was we just finished up the church or the Rise Up Kings church order, and he was like, "Oh man, I got to do personal best. I got 28 hammers done today." It's like, God damn, dude, you're making this very hard for me. And and it's the press. The press can't keep like I can only do so much. So
Hmm.
it's the die changing and all that. Like I can only do so because right now I'll do 50 hammers at a time, and it'll take me a week to get through the entire all 50 hammers through all the processes. So because
Yeah.
if they were more simplified hammers, it'd be a lot easier. But there's a lot of fullering and stuff. Uh, so yeah, they're a long process with the press, and I was like, well, it's time to replace the press and
Hmm.
speed up. And so I did a lot of research on which ways I could do that, and then actually, Jake Powell, I can't remember his handle. Uh, you had him on with Mike Hoops. Can't
Oh,
remember his name.
Bifrost Forge,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Josiah. Yeah.
He sent me a video of this Swedish axe company who has I don't know if it's a what type of press it is, but it continuously rotates and it's just a whole line of dies. And he's just moving down the line for an entire press out. So I'm like, ooh, holy
Oh
crap,
yeah.
man, what's
Like
that machine?
multi-station, like you're
Yep.
talking about like the Grands Forge Brook axe
Yeah, that's it. That's the one that he
company.
sent me. He
Yeah.
sent me a video of that, and I was like, whoa, what's that machine? So I sent that to Chris Cash, and I was like, so what are the odds I can find this, and how much would it even cost? And he was like, you'll never find that, but you can find one pretty close.
Hmm.
So that's when I started digging and doing research, and I found some equipment, but I actually have to back off because I had 3 lined up. They're big punch presses, but the more I looked into them, they are not T-slotted, so I'd have to get new plates made for them, and it was turning
Yeah.
out to be a whole lot of cost. So I did some more research, and I have the money for it now, but then I would also go broke. But
Yeah.
so I'm like, I'll wait and we'll push really hard and sell some more hammers. And we're getting into the scar trays and starting to do. I just spent a few grand on stuff to start doing classes for our local community, and because that's kind of the next step is to start doing simple classes too, just texturing
Yeah.
stuff because I want literally anybody to be able to cut because no one blacksmiths around me. So it's I just want anybody from the school, like uh, just anyone. For our town's very small, so the community would be easy to get into for little classes, $100 a spot, just easy stuff.
Yeah.
Making coffee scoops, bottle openers that are all from blanks. So it's not like
Yeah.
they have to learn how to forge. They just have to, they're basically texturing and shaping
Yeah.
or bending. And then,
I think there's a big
so yeah,
market for that, and not only classes. Well, I guess you would consider it class, but what I've seen a lot of guys do that are successful at the what I'll call hosted forging sessions instead of a
yeah,
class. Um, I mean, I'm sure you'll do classes where you're teaching somebody how to make a particular thing, but what I'm getting at is I've seen people start these businesses or expand their current business where they do things like date night, where they
yep.
they
And
say,
that's
hey,
basically what we're going for. It's
yeah,
like more of an
come make a
experience than,
come make
yep,
a horseshoe heart with your date,
yeah,
or make a bottle opener or a steak turner or something.
yep.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of
Something
room for that because
simple.
people are looking for something to do that's unique.
Exactly.
you know
There's, in my area, there's nothing to do. You can
yeah,
go, you can go throw axes, I guess, at one place, but there's nothing to do around here
yeah,
besides like your traditional go to the movies, go bowling, you know, your basic stuff. So
yeah, it's
that's
the same
definitely
here.
the aim, is to provide something. I've got such a big shop. It's like I don't need all of this room for the production. So we're kind of splitting it in half, and doing the front half's going to be all the classroom stuff, and do it that way. Should be a good
So
step forward.
just to roll back just for a minute
Yeah, yeah.
to the equipment swap. So are you getting completely rid of your of all hydraulic presses? You won't have a press in your shop?
Yep. Yeah. I'm going away from hydraulics. And so what I found is there is a company right here in Michigan that deal in big industrial, like punch presses, basically.
Yeah.
It's like a blitz press, where it's like that Swedish company, but on a smaller scale. They're not so massive.
And so these
And
are, and the reason I'm asking is that, like, one of the things that pops up all the time are people are selling these old bliss presses. And if you
yeah,
watch Blacksmithing for Beginners on Facebook or something every once in a while, somebody will pop up and say, "Ooh, this three-phase punch press came up for sale. Can I make a
yep,
power hammer out of it?" And
yeah.
you
That's
really
not what I'm trying to
can't.
do.
Yeah, you
yeah,
really
no,
can't. And people that do wind up getting hurt. I mean, there have been some people
yeah,
that have
yeah,
taken those things because that press, it's not like a power hammer where it comes together and then is ready for another
yeah,
blow. It comes down, and if there's something in the way, it'll like break basically,
yeah,
or
yeah.
whatever's
There's
between it
no,
will
yeah.
break.
You're definitely have to be on top of your spacing
So
and
have you
all that.
seen
But
Timothy Dick? You've seen his
yep,
stuff on YouTube.
yeah.
You've
It's
seen that
upsetter, man.
hydraulic.
If I could
Is it
find one
like
of
that air
those.
press?
No, no. What I'm getting is exactly like that Norwegian company, just smaller. It's just not.
Okay.
It's
Yeah.
not. It's not. Yeah.
So does it roll on
The one
like a
I've got my.
cam? Is it like a
Yes, it
cam with a
rolls on
roll
a
going?
flywheel. Yep, yep. And
Huh.
they're just not fast. It's a
Yeah.
slow, so that you kind of go in between the rhythm. You just
Yeah.
find the
With
rhythm of
each
it. And,
process
yep.
you're moving. Yeah.
Yeah. So I have punch, and the one I've got my eye on is it's got about, I think it was 24 T slots down the line, so I can fit a hell of a lot of I can probably fit my entire process in that one
Hmm.
machine. So
Wow.
that's the direction we're heading, is getting to
So how do you
where
control the amount of travel? Is the amount of travel always
it's got a
consistent and you just
it
change
has
the
a 10
die?
inch stroke. Yeah, it has a 10-inch stroke, so it's just changing your spacing out of your
Oh,
dies.
okay.
It's just
Huh.
having your dies being different space according to what part of the process
Yeah.
you're at.
Yeah. Watching those Grand Forge videos
Yeah.
are just
Yep.
insane, man. They just make me go,
I
you
know.
know,
I'm like, oh, and for me, it was like, okay, that's it. It was just like, watching Brent Bailey's videos. I saw it and I was like, that's what I need. I need to go
yeah,
that direction. And
yeah,
obviously, I couldn't afford or fit when I first started a big ass power hammer in my garage or anything.
Yeah.
So I was limited. So I went the press route, and it's treated me well. I mean, I've gone through 4 presses in 3 years,
Yeah.
just
Well,
because
I mean,
I just keep
it,
upgrading. Like it's just I got to
if
keep going up.
if you know where you're going and you know what you want to do, that it's going to work out. I was just I was just like, man, how would I feel with no hydraulic press in my shop at all? Because I use
It's
mine to
gonna be
like
scary.
resize stuff and all that. But you're going to have that other
Yeah,
hammer too
yeah,
from
and
Chris
that's
Cash,
kind
so
of
that's
going to
going to
be,
help.
yeah, and that's going to be, which I'll probably have to wait till spring because now my ground's frozen, so putting foundation in is going to be not great. But
Yeah.
yeah, once that's in, and I have this 160 pound power hammer too that I have to retrofit it with dies still to, I've got some from Custer on the way, so
Yeah,
I'm going
that's
to
a
put
wild
some
looking
in.
hammer.
Yeah, it's a home built one. It's
Yeah.
fun. It's scary to say the least. There's a big metal plate in front of my face, though, so I'm confident with that. If something breaks, at least there's a giant, thick plate of steel blocking it from hitting
Yeah.
me. But
Yeah,
it is,
I've got
it's weird
plates
just
and
because I don't know anything how it was. It's all the little quirks of it. I don't know yet.
oh yeah.
So every noise that's different, I'm like, oh God, what was that?
Yeah, when I'm on any of my mechanicals and they start making a weird noise, I freak out. I stop
Yeah,
and
man,
try to
there's
find out what's
so
going on.
much going on. Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
I don't want that to snap while it's full bore.
Yeah. I had a cotter pin uh come loose. I had done some maintenance on mine and I put it back together
Hmm.
and I forgot to bend the cotter pin to hold the washer back in place.
Oh,
And I went to using it and anyway, the cotter pin flew out and the washer fell off. And I was forging one day and I heard the washer hit the ground. And I was just like, oh gosh, what's about to fly off at me? But I wound up finding it and sticking it back in there and I was good to go again. But it's crazy how familiar you get with the noises of those pieces of equipment
yep.
so that if one little thing changes, you know it pretty quickly,
Yeah, you
And with
get
those kind of
real
machines,
sketched
you
out.
better pay attention. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
Well, that's cool, man. It's going to be exciting to see you set up the different stations.
Yeah,
That's going
it'll
to be
be a
pretty great
pain in the ass.
content, if nothing
Yeah, oh
else.
yeah. It'll be a long process of getting it set up, but it'll what it'll turn 50 hammers a week into 50 hammers a day. So
Yeah, yeah,
it's the type of move I need to make to get to that next level.
sure. So, well, that's a good place to move next. So, uh, short-term goals, you're moving to this new equipment and you want to do classes, right?
Yep. Yeah.
You would consider
And
those short-term goals.
yeah. Yep.
So,
And yeah, and I'm starting these cigar tray. I have been wanting to do ashtrays, cigar trays for a long time, and because I want to play around with textures and different shapes and making things very however they squish out. Like I'm not trying to be very
just some playtime.
controlling. I'm trying because of how particular I am with the hammers. I'm liking just letting it all flow and being a little more organic with how things turn out. And so far, I'm loving it. Like
Yeah.
it's fun because I have so many ideas popping in. Like I'll just throw a billet in with no plan, and by the time it's heated up, I'm like, okay, this is what I'm gonna do. Like I've got
Yeah,
it all
yeah.
figured out. Yeah,
I think there's
I,
definitely a place for that. I just made a YouTube video about that where I talked about a pet peeve of mine was when people say, "I'm just going to let the steel do what it wants to do," and
yeah,
in some ways that tells me you don't really know what you're doing and you're just kind of surprised, you have these
yeah,
happy accidents, but on the other end of it there is definitely a time for, man, I know forging, I've done this, I have this process that I follow through and I've been very regimented to do this stuff
yeah,
for so long, I just want to play, and there is
yeah,
100% a place for that. And I think some of the most cool products come out of those kinds of just play sessions, where people
Yeah.
just
Yep.
get in there and just kind of experiment and figure out, how they can use their equipment in different ways than they have in the past. And then, out pops
Yeah.
this idea that comes out of the experimentation, and man, there's not much more fun to me than just kind of playing with forging like that,
Yeah.
especially if
Yeah.
you've got the big equipment.
Yeah.
It is a lot
Absolutely.
more fun when you've got the big equipment than if you're sitting there having to move the stuff with a sledgehammer,
Yeah. 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 I don't miss those days because that
yeah.
was excruciating.
I mean, it is, there's something to that, learning to strike and do all that, but
Yeah.
yeah,
Oh, I
at
love
my
it. I
age, I
love
don't
striking
consider that
at.
a lot of fun anymore.
Oh, I love it at events when we're doing some like
Yeah,
teamwork and doing some team strike. I love doing that. But yeah, other than that, it's like to me, it's a waste of time. Like I don't want to.
yeah.
I have so much to do and so little time to do it. Like I don't want to sit and
Right,
wail on
right.
something for
There's a
three
time and
hours.
place for it for sure. Yeah.
Yep.
So
Yeah. So
those
it's
are
nice because. Oh, sorry. What?
no, I was just gonna say, so those are your short term. What's a long term goal for you? Like, what are you
Uh.
looking at 5 years from now
Um.
down the road? What would you say you want to be
Hopefully
doing?
5 years from now, I have like a solid crew going. Like I want to have a 3 to 5 person crew, depending on each state. Like I pretty much want each part of the process to have its own person who specializes in that process, so that every part is coming out the best it can come out. Like everyone
Yeah,
pays attention to the details of their own thing. They're not spread out trying to pay attention to 40 different details. It's 8 or whatever it may be. Like there's, so I want that and to get an actual school going, like for, because I want to bring people in and I want to, like my dad has his own, he's getting into like building little cabins and stuff like that. He's got his own little sawmill. So I want
in
to build some.
between trucks coming into the shop,
Yeah,
blowing the walls
yeah,
down.
yeah, no shit. Yeah, that was crazy, man. That dude, I don't. We still don't know what his deal was. Like why he drove into the building.
Man,
Because he like it seemed purposeful. So we're not really sure. Because there's no way he would have been. It would have just been an accident off, like gone off the road and hit our building. It's way too far from the road.
yeah.
So so it was kind of nuts. But
I
yeah.
thought that was your. I thought that was your shop, and I was like, oh my gosh.
Oh hell no! Oh god, I would have been devastated.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, no, it was and it was the shop that he just purchased and did a bunch of renovation on, and we were gonna move in the next week, and then that dude
Oh
drove through the
man,
wall. Yeah,
that's
uh,
funny.
yeah. So,
Sorry, that was a
oh, you're
that's
fine.
a rabbit
Uh,
hole.
yeah, no, it was one that should have been. It's crazy. So, uh, oh, but yeah, so he does. He is nearing retirement. Like he's got 3 years, and that's kind of another big push for me. Is I know the guys that are buying my dad's company because I don't want. I have no interest in being a second generation owner that runs their
Yeah,
parents' business into the ground. So I'm like, that's why I started all this. Like that's why I've been pushing so hard. It's because I know I have a deadline that when he retires, they're going to replace me with one of their wives, probably,
yeah,
because it doesn't make sense to keep me on. I'm there for I'm there for 4 hours a week,
yeah,
so they're so I know I have a hard deadline. So that keeps me motivated to make sure that I am set and that I have all of this in place
hmm,
so that it can take over my because I don't even pay myself. I don't pay myself. Every single cent goes right back into the shop so that
yeah,
like
yeah,
there's the only thing it pays for is electricity and its own internet. Everything
yeah.
else is invested right back into it. So
I did that
it's
at least the first 2 years, and most of the third. It was like right back into
yeah.
equipment
I'm
and
I'm
materials,
five
and
years in of not
yeah,
paying myself, so
yeah,
it's all right. I don't like I get to do what I love every single day, so I do not mind it at all. And the bills are paid. It's not like I'm stressed about the
yeah,
bills being paid or anything. But I also have that cushion of another job for the next 3 years. But
yeah.
so that'll really let me get to the place I need to be before I'm just kaputs and this is the only source of revenue.
Yeah, well, that's smart. I mean, it's better than waiting and being caught with your pants down and going,
Yeah,
okay, gosh,
yeah,
now
because
I got to do something.
I could have easily
That's a
just,
different kind of
you know,
pressure.
yeah, I could have easily just done the same thing and then went to some shop job I hated when the time came that I had to get a new job. Like, or
Yeah,
I could have
yeah,
taken over my dad's business and run it into the ground. So,
Hmm.
you know, and then,
Right.
yeah, like I said, I have no interest in that because I know I have watched my dad fight hard and struggle for what he has now, for what he has built the past 24 years.
Hmm.
Uh, so, you know, he was a great example on how to do it right because he
Hmm.
just worked his ass off. And
Yeah.
he
Well, that's
told me a couple weeks
generally
ago,
how it goes. Yeah,
yeah,
that's how you do it right. Right is you
yeah,
work like
yep,
crazy.
yeah, yeah. Keep your head down and just keep going. And
Yeah.
but he also like ever since I was 14 and could start sweeping floors and stuff on job sites, I've been riding in the truck with him, listening, talk to clients and all that stuff. So I've picked up a lot just by him leading by example. That's a big thing for
Oh
me
yeah.
is
Yeah.
with my kids
Those
is
are
like I don't
things
try to
that
tell them how
you
to do
learned you didn't know
how to
you
do.
learned. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, I just try to show like I try to show my kids how to be in life. I don't try to harp on them like you need to be this way or that way. I
Hmm.
just try to lead by example because that's how I learned was
Yeah.
watching my dad and
How
watching
old
my
are your
mom.
kids?
They are both 10. So,
Okay. Did they have
fun.
any interest in the metalworking?
Um the daughter does a little. I actually got her own little coal forge like a uh-oh.
Uh-oh. Yep. We had a technical glitch there for a minute. Last I heard was the daughter.
Yeah, she's gotten into am I still there?
Well, it says reconnecting. Let's give it a second and see.
Okay. Can you hear me still?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
well,
All
I've
right.
just got a little box on my screen that says
Yeah.
reconnecting. This app
Yeah, I
does a
see it.
really good job of kind of catching things up later, so we'll just keep going.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so I got her own tiny little coal forge for Christmas. And so I told her if she sticks with it and works hard, I'll set up the big coal forge for her in the springtime, which I
Oh yeah,
have,
yeah.
because I have, uh, not last year, but the year before, Chris Cash posted a huge forge for sale. It was a giant
Hmm.
coal forge that came out of Pennsylvania Railway, and it's like the biggest coal forge in the U.S. and it's sitting right outside my shop. So it
Oh
needs to get
wow.
put to work. Yeah, it needs to
Yeah,
get put to work. Oh, it's tarped and everything, so it's nice
yeah,
and taken care of. But yeah, I just don't have a hood system or anything in here for it, so
yeah.
I couldn't put it in here. Plus, it's not. That's for the plan for that is I want to build like a kind of pavilion extension off the back of the shop, and there'll be an outdoor forge area where that'll be all
Oh
set
yeah,
up
that'll
so
be
that we
great.
can. Because what I want to do is I want to back to my dad building these cabins. I want to build 5 guest cabins on right behind the shop because I have property in the woods. Like I just live in the
Yeah.
woods, so I want to build some guest cabins, and then there'll be like a uh, instructor cabin to where it'll be a little bigger and they'll get I want to bring people here to teach classes. Like
Oh yeah, that's
I
great.
don't care to teach. I want to bring people here to teach so I can just watch and learn and
Yeah,
just pick
yeah.
up and I don't want to
That's
take the class either. Like I want
that's
people to
that's
come
the
out and
best
do
way
it.
to get education is
Yep.
provide a place for people to come. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah,
There's
and that's what I want to
a
do
good
is
friend of
just
mine in Louisiana has a setup like that where we've done the tire hammer classes. He's got a really
yeah.
nice shop and he brings in people. I think he's bringing in Mamasi um,
Oh
to
yeah.
do Damascus like
Nice.
first weekend in February.
Ooh,
And he's got
that'd be cool.
cabins and stuff like that. Really cool.
Yeah, and that's kind of the goal is to have
Hmm.
people come out here, and then I want to have a podcast studio off the side because that's a big plan in the future is to do
Yeah.
a get after it podcast. where I
That's
just
awesome.
interview, and I want to, for that, it's gonna, like, I have very specific goals. And for that, uh, I want to actually bring people out to spend the week in the shop forging with me and my crew, and then they do a podcast as well while they're here. So it's all in
Yeah, that's
person,
cool.
and yeah, and kind of take them out to dinner and stuff and all that kind of stuff. Like kind of make a week, so it's more of
Mm,
yeah.
yeah,
So it's more of
that's great.
an experience to be on the podcast. Like it's kind of
Yeah,
a whole thing.
that'll be awesome.
Because I
That's
like
a great
because that's
idea.
how I like doing it. I like talking to people in person and like we'll go for hours. Like I don't want it to have any kind of timestamp. However long it goes is how long it goes.
Yeah, the
So yeah,
Rogan style.
yeah, 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 kind of, yeah, similar.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
that's cool. So, I think we're getting kind of close to an hour. I don't want to keep you too long, but to kind of wrap up, uh, you're playing with the ashtrays now,
yep.
so that's fun. What's something that you've been wanting to do but haven't had time because you've been growing so fast? Is there some area
Yeah,
of forging or blacksmithing or
cutlery.
something
I
else
want
totally
to.
that you want to get to that you just have to keep kicking down the road?
Uh, Actually, I am starting the process of getting into it. The ashtrays, I want to really put to. We have a few cigar bars and stuff around here, so that's really where I want to push them is to the
Okay.
local
Yeah,
cigar
that makes good
aficionados and
sense.
stuff. We got a bunch of rich dudes who go and smoke cigars in this one place called the Humidor.
Yeah.
Uh, so that, but what I really wanted to, since almost the start, I got obsessed with hammers and took over, but forks, spoons, steak knives. Like right now, I'm obsessed with Alex Pohl and his stuff.
Oh yeah. That's
Yeah,
the
and
dude.
that's because I was like, I saw his stuff like I don't know, maybe a year ago, and I was like, whoa, that's what I've been trying to figure
There's
out how
man.
to do. And then I watched his video. Like I watch his forging cutlery video probably 100 times now because I
Yeah,
just
his
love
the
everything
black
about. Yeah.
stainless
Yep.
stuff. Yeah. Oh man, it looks so delicate too. I mean, it's like
Mhm.
it's all forged out. I think he does a lot of that forging on a little 15 kilogram, 30
Yeah.
pound air hammer,
Yeah. It's
but
a tiny little hammer.
yeah, but man, it's so well done.
Oh yeah.
It
Yep. And
looks
that's the
great.
type of stuff I've been wanting to get into is into the local supplying local restaurants and stuff because we don't have anyone that does that kind of stuff. Like they're
Yeah.
all just basic silverware and stuff, that you'd find at any
He
restaurant.
does,
So
doesn't he do steel plates too?
yeah,
Just like
yeah,
steel
all
dinner
that stuff,
plates?
and that's what I want to get into is all
Yeah.
that kind of stuff with the tech because I've always loved texture, and that's a big thing with the ashtrays and stuff. Is I want to get into
Hmm.
making dyes to pre-texture everything before upsetting, so it really
Yeah.
makes things kind of crazy. And yeah, when I found his stuff, I was like, God, that is what I've been wanting to do, but I could never figure out. I was like, I don't know how to forge a fork, like
Yeah.
in a production aspect, like in a larger way. And because
Well, it's just like the
I don't like
hammers.
to do anything one by one and slow. Like I like to make a lot of things. So
Yeah. Well, it'd
the
be just like the
production is
hammers.
definitely a
You
driver.
figure out the process and
Yep.
keep working at it. And what I've found is I've got a few items that I've made thousands of at this point, and the way
Yeah.
I make them now is different than the way I made them when I start, you know.
Oh yeah. I don't
And
think I
and
ever
it
stopped.
continues to change. Like it continue like every once in a while I'll find, man, why don't I do that step over here instead? And then I'll change it. And I'm like, oh man,
Yep.
that's a lot faster. And so it's like you never your process is never done, in
No.
my opinion. It's never
Nope.
locked. And I've got a notebook that I keep in the shop. I call it's the Forge Notes. It's just a red spiral bound
Yeah.
notebook, and I've got a page for each one of my products. And I write down whenever I'm kind of happy with how a product looks, I'll write down the steps, just kind of, and I'll doodle and sketch on the side so I kind of
Yeah.
remember what tools I'm using. Because if I don't write it down and I don't make one for 6 months for some reason, I'll come back and have no clue. I'm like,
Oh
how did I do that again? And
man, I can't tell you how many times I had to guess dimensions on hammers I've made 100 frickin' times because I'm
yeah,
like,
yeah, if you
I've
don't
never
write it
written
down, it's
anything
gone.
down. So now,
Oh
yeah,
yeah,
so now I have a cluttered ass whiteboard that's full of stuff. And then I have a
yeah,
notebook that when I have the time, I'll sit and actually draw every step. Like I'll have it all written on one page, and then the next page is just a bunch of hand drawn diagrams of
right.
every
Yeah.
of literally step by step what the billet looks like every every step of the way.
I took pictures for a little while. I made a folder on my iPhone for each
Yeah,
item, and I would take a picture of each step,
that's
And
what I should do.
I don't know if you've got Brent Bailey's Hammer book. Do you have his
Oh, I
10
do.
Hammers books,
Absolutely.
or his 10
Absolutely.
Axes books? That's
I
where I
jumped
got the
on the
idea
hammer
for
one
that.
right when it came out. I jumped on the hammer one.
Yeah. He's got another one called 10 Axes. It's pretty good.
Yeah, I don't have that one yet. I want to get it, but because
It's the same real picture book kind of thing.
I wanted to do axes, and I made a few, and I don't like the eye. Don't like the teardrop eye. It really was getting on my nerves because I
Yeah.
kept messing them up, and I was like, man, this is way more difficult than the eye of a hammer.
Yeah. Yeah. It is it's certainly a different forging when it
Yeah,
comes to the eye. It's super easy to pinch down,
yep. And that was the
and
problem I was having is it kept getting pinched, and I was like, good lord, man.
yeah.
Either that or it's ruining drifts, and I was like, all right, I'm going back to hammers because that's what I know.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
But yeah, but you kind of have to
so
be okay with failure in the beginning because
sure.
you're gonna suck at
Yeah, that's the
everything the
name of the
first time.
game in this business, man. If you're uncomfortable with that, you won't be around very long. That's for sure.
Nope.
One thing that we didn't touch on that I just kind of wanted to mention was your partnership with Housemaid.
Yeah.
That came about through Quad State.
No.
Or
So I had messaged uh Brian and a few other people because I had an idea of making uh hammers that specific makers would like to have, like so it would be named after them, like it would be the
yeah,
house hammer or the I did Coy Baker was one I reached out to. Like
yeah,
there's quite a few people I reached out to say like I want to make your hammer, like your
yeah.
ideal hammer and make it a product. And
Gotcha.
uh Brian, I mean Coy, a few people took to it, but Brian was so enthusiastic and said love this. And
Yeah.
like he wanted to, and he was like, I don't know how logistically this will work, but I think this is something we should really do. And then,
Hmm.
and then it didn't kind of go anywhere because we had never met. He didn't really know me that much. So it's like, can I really rely on this guy to do stuff? And
Yeah. Well,
so,
that's a natural. Yeah, that's a
so
natural
I took
evolution
a
of a
huge,
partnership.
yeah, so I took a huge risk and made 50 hammers for Quad State and Maker Camp. And I was like, I've got no set. These are not sold or anything, so I'm gonna take a big risk because it was a lot. Like at the time, that was a lot of money in steel. That for
Sure.
me at that time,
And
I was like,
work.
it's like, how the hell can I even pull this off? If I don't sell these, I'm screwed.
Yeah.
And so I got, then I got to Maker Camp, met Brian in person, and he we just clicked instantly, got along. We were the same type of people, and he saw my work, and I talked to him, and he was like, "I just don't know how it works for $100 a hammer." I said, "Because I am aggressive, and
Hmm.
I have a good steel supplier with good prices. Like I know the cost, and I know what I'm willing to sacrifice to get ahead." So
Yeah.
and that's what
Yeah.
I did. And it took to him, and he said it was just eating away at him the whole plane ride. And he landed, and as soon as he landed, and they were allowed to turn their phones back on, he called me and said, "We got to make this happen. This needs to happen." So, and it was like the ball rolling. And
Yeah.
then I was like, okay, well, I obviously need a bigger press if I'm going to be doing actual work. So then I got the Clark press, and I worked with that for a while, and then that was holding me up just because of just I couldn't really hook up a DPC to it or anything, so I couldn't really get the same uniform result most of the time. Like it was really because with my OCD, it
Yeah. The
was really
DPC is
bothering me.
really Probably, I think the DPC is critical for guys that want to do production stuff
Yep.
on a press, for
I
sure.
mean, if yeah, because if you're, it's not about making it. I mean, it does make it easier, but it's time because I
Yeah,
need to. Yeah, it's all the time you spend chasing to make everything the same is
right.
wasted time. So so then uh, Coal Iron announced the new H-frame builder and all that, and announced that 60-ton press, and I went and tested it at the school. I said, "Do you have one of these actually working?" And they were like, "Yeah, we got one at the school." So I drove
Yeah.
down there because they're a 4 hour drive, so it's not that bad. So I
Mm,
drove down there and I tested it, and I said, "Okay, I want to buy one." And I bought the first one that
hmm.
was actually sold. Like they didn't even have it made yet. I bought the first one off the actual production line. So
Nice.
it was
Yeah.
cool. Yeah. So it's like its serial tag is number two because the number one is the one in the school. So,
Okay. Yeah.
yep. So and yeah, now I'm to the point where that's slowing me down. So because
Yeah.
Dave is too dang fast. So now I got to keep up with him. And I knew it was going to happen. After about a week of him working, he was already doing like 15 hammers a day. I was like, oh, he's going to pass me
You're like,
so
oh, this
quickly.
guy's gonna cause
Yep.
me
I
trouble.
was like, I got to start thinking of ways to make things faster. And I already had the power hammer from Chris purchased, but I don't have it here.
Are you
So
gonna
I
have
was
to
like,
dig a
well, then
foundation for that thing?
yeah, 6 foot deep,
Ooh, yeah, man.
so much concrete.
That's what's kept
Yeah,
me at the
my
88.
pocketbook's gonna love that.
Yeah. Yeah, the Anyang 88's the biggest one I can put in my shop without digging a hole, and I'm just I'm not going
How
to dig a
thick's
hole right
your
now.
how thick's your floor?
It's a standard 4 to 5 inch reinforced
Oh, no
slab.
kidding.
Yeah, yeah, and
And
that's
do you just
you
have
can
that
put it.
on timbers
You
or
it's on
is it
stall
right to the
mat.
floor? Oh,
It's
okay.
on it's on rubber stall mat bolted into the foundation, and I
Hmm.
haven't had a bit of trouble out of it.
Damn.
Matter of fact, my my tire hammers have caused a little bit more cracking in the foundation than the Anyang 88,
No
which is
kidding.
considered a
Hmm.
106. But yeah, if you go to the next Anyang size up, you got to dig a hole. You know.
Well, that'll be because I'll probably want another smaller hammer. I don't need anything big, so I've been him hawing whether I want to go with like Cole's hammer or if I want to do an Anyang or. But how isn't Anyang having like
Well, they're shut down in the U.S. right now,
okay, that's what I
because
thought.
of the tariff. I mean, because of the
Potential
um,
tariffs.
it's an embargo. I think that's going on right
Hmm.
now. Like they
Oh,
literally
okay.
are not allowed because Anyang supplies Russia with
Oh, gotcha.
certain industrial
So, because
equipment,
they,
and so the Biden administration said, well, because you're supplying Russia with this equipment and it's helping them in their war effort, you can't bring your
gotcha.
stuff to the US. So I think whenever the war in Ukraine ends, if it ever ends, hopefully all those things will drop, and I hope
Yeah,
that James Johnson can start bringing Anyangs back
yeah,
into the US.
yeah. No,
Um,
because I always like seeing all of those Anyangs lined up and ready to ship and
yeah,
stuff. It's always cool.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
God, man, I've almost bought one of those so many times and just never did because I don't know. I've always
yeah,
been comfortable with the press. So, and then
yeah.
I pulled the trigger on the one with Chris because he called me
Well,
and he was like, "Hey, man, I've got
you
a
won't
bunch of power
regret
hammers."
you won't regret having a big hammer. That's for sure. I mean, you won't regret that at all. It'll be worth the
No.
expense and the
Yep.
hassle, and it will
Oh
be
yeah.
expense and hassle, but it'll be worth it for sure. You know,
Well, thankfully it's
you'll be
paid
able to
for,
live out
so my
your
the expense will be in putting the padding in,
yeah.
putting the floor
You'll
in.
be able to you'll be able to live out your Brent Bailey dreams when that
Yes. Yeah. Oh
comes
yeah.
in finally.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, well, my ultimate goal, which had started the very first hammer I made, is to make a hammer in one heat. So
Hmm.
it's got to happen. It'll
Yeah.
happen once I get a big machine that has all those dies and a big power hammer. It
Oh
should be
yeah.
doable.
Oh yeah.
But yeah,
Oh yeah.
but I've actually talked to Brent about this, and he said that he was like, "Man, if I could start all over, I think I'd do it that way, like doing it more automated way, so it's not
Yeah.
so. He was like, he told me it's like I spend all day making hammers, and then at the end of the day, I don't even want to make one for myself. I
Yeah.
was like, dude, I
Yeah.
feel that. I don't want to make
Yeah.
like I don't have that many hammers I have made because I just don't. I make so many, I don't want to do it anymore. At the end of the day,
Oh, I think I've got two in my rack that I made. Every other hammer is from somebody else.
the only
I've got
ones that make it
four
to my
of
rack are mess
Brent's.
ups.
Yeah. Yeah. I've got four of Brent's. They're great hammers. They're beautiful.
Yeah, I know. I need to get one of his. I just haven't. I don't have that many
Just,
hammers because I spend too much time putting everything into the damn business. I don't ever have money.
yeah. Hmm.
I should get one.
So let me ask you a final few questions and then we'll wrap up. It
Yeah,
looks like it's cold there. I keep seeing your breath. I don't, you look
yeah.
like it's
I don't have
super
heat
cold
in
in
the
your
shop,
shop.
so yeah, I don't have
How
heat.
cold is it out right now?
Uh,
Is it like in the single
23
digits?
degrees.
Oh,
23.
well, it's not too bad.
I've got a heater next to me, so like a
Okay.
little tank top circle
Yeah.
heater, so nothing,
Cool.
nothing fancy. Usually I'm standing in front of the forge all day, so it doesn't bother me.
Right. So
Father's
what do
Day is a
you
little bit. He gets a little cold over at the grinder, but
Yeah. Huh. All
he'll
right.
come
Well,
over and
so what do
huddle in
you
front of the
listen to
forge.
when you're in the shop?
Um, a lot of I listen to Prof and a lot of podcasts. Like that's pretty much 24/7. I'm listening to podcasts.
Okay. Yeah.
Like I'll do the Rogan one every once in a while if it's someone that if it's like a subject I'm interested in.
Yeah.
Um, and then I'll do like I like his talks with people that aren't comedians. They like are really experienced in their field,
Oh, yeah.
especially like
Yeah.
anything with health or food and stuff. Because
Yeah.
I
Whenever he
only
has
eat
a,
eggs and meat, so
right. Well, yeah. Whenever he has like an MMA podcast or a comedian podcast, I kind of skip it
yeah,
usually.
yeah. I'll skip over those ones. I'll listen to the Protect Your Parks one because those are funny. But
Those are hilarious. Yeah.
yeah, but usually if he has a comedian, I just skip past that and I'll go to like hunting. If he's got an outdoorsman or some kind of hunter or something, I'll listen to those.
Yeah.
But other than that, I listen to Huberman, like the Sean Ryan one.
Yeah. I've
What's the
been
other one?
listening to Sean
Tucker
Ryan stuff a good bit
Carlson.
lately.
I listen to Tucker Carlson too sometimes. Uh, there's another one. I do the No Sleep podcast. I listen to that. I actually pay for the extended episodes
Oh,
too
yeah.
because
Okay.
I love those. Those are I know
Yeah.
Hoops listens to that too, and they're good. I
Yeah.
like those. That's like my break from reality kind of podcast I listen to.
Sure. Yeah.
Otherwise it's mostly just very long form talks that I listen to.
Cool. Yeah.
Yep.
So, last question, and then we'll talk about where people can find you. So, what's the weirdest thing or strangest request you've gotten? You probably don't do
Uh,
custom requests,
no,
but
no,
everybody's
not
gotten
often.
them from time to
I've
time.
gotten there's actually a local lady. We were at the town hall meeting last night, and she's one of the board members, and I mentioned that I have a blacksmith shop, and we're just trying to expand, get more involved in the community and stuff, and just be more informed about what's going on in our own town. And
Right.
uh, she's like, "Oh my God, you're a blacksmith! I have this leg on my wood burner that cracked, and can you forge it?" And it's. She showed me. She was like, "I got a
Cast
picture, right?"
iron.
Yeah, it's a casted leg that's got like all kinds of filigree and stuff
Swirls.
into it. Yeah,
Yeah.
and I was like, "No, I can't really forge that. That's a pretty unique." I was like, "You're gonna have to have someone like custom cast that because
Somebody's gonna have to, yeah, or do a
yeah,
real crazy braze job with
yeah,
slow
yeah,
cooling and all that. Yeah.
and she just was like, "Oh, you can forge this, right?" No, no, not really. I wish.
I had a weird one the other day. A guy reached out to me on TikTok and said, I don't check my DMs on TikTok a lot. And this was from a few
Yeah,
weeks ago. And the message was, hey, I have a special request and I don't take customs. But the way he worded
yeah,
it, I was like, I want to see what this is about. Um, he said, I have a special request. I have a titanium screw that was in my leg for 4 years
Oh
and it's
wow.
out. And I want to see if you could make a cross out of it. And I was thinking, that might be kind of cool. And so I said, well,
Yeah.
send me a picture of the screw. And I was thinking, if it was like 1/4 inch or
Yeah.
bigger material, it'd be plenty there to work with. And it was just a tiny little screw, it was maybe
It's like
this
a quarter
long.
20.
Yeah, it was like
Tiny little
literally like a
guy.
1/4 20. It's like a 3 inch 1/4 20 titanium screw. And I was like, I really can't. There's not enough material there for me to do what I would want to do
I
with it.
might be able to make a bracelet.
Yeah, but that was about it. And so I turned them down. I was like, yeah, I'm not the
Yeah.
guy for that. But that was kind of a
Yeah.
weird one.
Thankfully, I stay so niche in the hammers that I don't really get very many weird requests. So
Yeah.
I don't really get. And anyone that asks for a custom hammer, I just tell them to go to Fat Boy Forge.
Oh man, that
Because
guy's
me
so
and
good.
Austin talk all the time. He's like one of my best
Yeah.
friends, and so even though we've only met twice, so but
Yeah, he
he
sent
was
me a
the
hammer.
first one. He was the first one that I started talking hammers with, and we've just
Okay.
been good friends
Yeah.
ever since. So he's I usually if someone asks for a custom hammer, I'll just say he can hook you up, and he
Yeah.
makes
Yeah.
phenomenal hammers. So I love
Yeah,
his
he's
stuff.
great. He sent me a hammer right when he was getting started, and just out of the blue DM'd me one day and said, "Hey, can I send you a hammer and
Yeah.
to get your feedback on?" And I was like, "Yeah, man, that'd be great. Thank you." And he sent me this rounding hammer. It's like a farrier style rounding hammer.
Yep.
And it's great. I mean, it's beautiful. But it was
Dude.
before he was touch mark. He didn't have a touch mark.
Yeah.
He
Yep.
made
I
he
have
made a
one of
bunch
his
of
ones with no
hammers.
touch mark too.
Yeah, he made a bunch of hammers with no touch mark. So this beautiful hammer shows up and there's no mark on it. And I was like, I was thankful and excited and disappointed all at the same time
Yeah.
because I'm like,
Yep.
man, I want your touch
I
mark on
did.
this thing.
I did quite a few without a touch mark because I wasn't uh
But it's
the
still in my
big
rack. I
bad.
love it.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I've got one of his somewhere around here that gets used. Actually, it's over on the. It gets used for hanging hammers because that
Hmm,
thing's awesome. Yeah, I love his hammers. They're great.
that's awesome.
Because I told him I was like, just make me. Oh, it's got to have a big flat face and a fat peen on it. I said, make a true fat boy. And
Huh,
he was like, hell yeah, man, and made it up. And I love that hammer. It's one of my favorites.
yeah. It's hard when people are starting out making hammers to come up with their own style.
Yep.
And he's one of the few people that I've seen who came out with his quirky style real
Mm-hmm.
fast. Like,
Yeah.
with the big ball fuller that he was using,
Yeah.
to
Yep.
do those ball. I had not seen, I don't know that I'd seen anybody really do that. And he kind of
No,
adopted
I
that and made
had.
it his own style really quickly. And I was like, all right, this guy's going to do all right.
Yeah, him and we get our dies made by the same guy, and he was like, and the guy who made the dies, he said those have been so popular since he started making hammers with those.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, yeah, I
Yeah.
bet, man. He made some
I
sexy
saw,
hammers.
I saw Paul Beisler immediately went and got a
Yep.
set made
Oh,
pretty
yep.
soon
Yep.
after a Fat Boy started doing them.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, well,
No
that
one's got
that
that.
was
I don't think I've seen anyone with that fat boy touch though, man. He's got
no
such a
his yeah,
unique style. I
yeah,
love it.
yeah. So, any last words or advice you'd give to other people who want to be where you're at right now
Uh,
in
just
the
keep
fight, in the
pushing. Yeah,
struggle?
yeah. Just keep pushing, man. Just always be uncomfortable with where you're at. That's the only
Yeah.
reason I've gotten to where I am is because I keep, like I said, when you get comfortable, you're falling behind. So that
Right.
just, if you're comfortable, use it as a sign to upgrade something, to get it
Yeah,
improved,
that's a good.
improve in some
Yeah,
way.
that's really good. That's really
Because
good.
that's
I mean,
every
it was
time I feel comfortable, I look around at what's the bottleneck,
right.
what's making it so comfortable. So,
Well, I think you gave everybody a collective shock when you threw the press up for sale, but at the same
yeah,
time it's inspiring to see that level of confidence because that's what it takes to do that, to take your bread and butter tool and just say, okay, I'm moving on to something else. There's a lot of confidence there, so that's really cool.
yeah,
I can't wait to see what you do with that multi-station press. That's going to be really,
Yeah,
really
it'll
awesome.
be yeah, it'll be a journey in its own getting that thing in here and set up. It's 40,000 pounds, so just getting it into the shop is going to be a freaking
That'll
trial of
be
its
an
own.
adventure.
So
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, I know. I'm gonna have to rent very big equipment or
Yeah.
hire a crew or something. I don't know. We'll figure it out.
Find friends with
It'll
equipment.
it'll fit through the door. So all I got to do is get it in the shop, and I have one
Yeah.
on each end of the shop. So if I need to bring it to the back door, I'll cut down a bunch of trees so we can get around to the back door. I don't care.
Yeah.
I need parking. I need a parking lot next to the shop anyway, so I'll just cut down all those trees.
There you go.
Yep.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, where can people find you?
Instagram, GnomeHammer Forge, and I have Facebook that I don't use as often. Definitely Instagram's the way to find me.
Yeah.
Because
Okay.
everything else, I just find it too exhausting and too time consuming to take away from production.
And
I need to get a
Instagram
social media
points
person.
to your website.
Yep, gnomehammerforge.org for products like the cigar trays or classes. Yep, but I mean, I
Sweet.
doubt anyone's driving here for a class, so
Yeah.
not in our community.
All right. Well, anything else you want to say or anybody else you want to shout out before we wrap up?
I I think I think that's solid.
We've talked about a lot of people and a lot of stuff.
Yeah, yeah, man.
Well, that's awesome. I
I've
think
had
we're
a
at
great
like
time.
an hour 15 or so,
Yeah,
and you're probably ready to go in and warm up. So
yeah. Me and my
thanks
wife are
for
gonna go to dinner, so get
nice,
to it.
nice.
Yeah,
Well, thanks for
yeah. It's
taking the
like I got to
time.
do this
I
podcast.
really
You want to go to
appreciate it.
dinner after? So she was like,
Well, I
fine.
appreciate it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Hell
thanks
yeah.
for
I
coming.
enjoyed it. Thanks for having me,
Been a
man.
good
It was an
time.
awesome time. Yeah.
Yeah. I hope I can get up that way sometime and see
Absolutely.
your
Yeah.
place.
Well, yeah, you're gonna be one of the people I want to come up here to teach like a barbecue class or something for the locals and
Sweet.
stuff. Like
Let's do
I've
it.
got a list. I've got a whole list of people I want to bring up here once I start doing that stuff.
I'm ready. Sounds like a
Heck
plan.
yeah. Hell yeah.
All right.
All right, man.
Well, thanks a
I
bunch,
appreciate
man.
you having me. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yep. Y'all have fun eating.
Yeah, absolutely. You have a good one.